From the Shark Board could take your seats. I'm going to call this meeting to order shortly. Can I have your attention, please? All the members of the Spiny Dogfish and Shark Management Board, please take their seats. We're going to get started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Gibson. I'm the current chair of the Spiny Dogfish Coastal Shark Management Board. I have the unenviable task of chairing the first board after our parliamentary workshop today and making the first official blunders. The first item on the agenda is the agenda. I don't have any adjustments or changes to be made. Is there anyone wishing to adjust the agenda? Seeing none, is there any opposition to approving the agenda as written? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next item is the proceedings from our May 2013 session. Anyone wishing to make any edits or changes to the proceedings? Seeing none, is there any opposition to approving those proceedings as written? Seeing none, those stand approved. Our next item is public comment. This would be an opportunity to comment on items not on the agenda. I'm anticipating a couple of motions later for implementation plans in Addendum 3, and I may allow some limited public comment as those motions are on the floor, but this would be for issues not on the agenda. No one signed in. I don't see anybody asking to speak, so we'll move on to review of state proposals for Addendum 2. This is an action item. Marin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as he said, these are the state implementation plans for Addendum 2 to coastal sharks. Just a little bit of overview and background. This addendum was approved in May 2013, and it's going to be implemented by January 1st, 2014. The fin to carcass aspect of this addendum could be implemented anytime after May 21st, 2013. So states submitted their plans by July 15th, and the PRT reviewed these plans, The two elements of compliance are the ability to implement and monitor a quota with the authority to close the fishery if necessary, and also the maximum fin to carcass ratio. States can be more conservative than that ratio, but they cannot be less conservative. So the first issue is the quota monitoring. All states with a state share except New Jersey and Connecticut have or will have the ability to monitor and close the smoothhound fishery by January 1st, 2014. Both New Jersey and Connecticut are going to wait until the coastwide quota is implemented, and both of these states have the ability to respond quickly once that quota is implemented. All states are waiting until the coastwide quota is known to put in place the possession limit. One of the issues that the PRT also discussed is the three states that do not have an allocation. That would be Georgia, Florida, and New Hampshire. The PRT decided or recommends that requiring those states to prohibit landings would be an unnecessary burden. So they recommend that any state that doesn't have any state share should they harvest smoothhound sharks, they just request a quota transfer from a different state. In terms of the fin to carcass ratio, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and New York will all be having fins naturally attached. Rhode Island and New Jersey will be implementing or have already implemented the 12 to 88 fin to carcass ratio. Connecticut is keeping their 5 to 95 ratio with the dorsal fin naturally attached. South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida are also all requiring that fins are naturally attached. Virginia and North Carolina will be implementing the 12 to 88 fin to carcass ratio, and Delaware and Maryland will have an 8 to 92 fin to carcass ratio for the dorsal and pectoral fin set, and a 4 to 96 for the caudal fin set. In addition, Maine requested de minimis from Addendum 2. I just wanted to remind everyone that they were allocated 0.02% of the coastwide quota, and smoothhound sharks are rarely encountered in Maine waters. The PRT and the TC reviewed this request and recommends granting de minimis to Maine with the provision that should Maine exceed its allocation in any year, the state will put a mechanism in place to close the fishery. So overall, the general recommendations from the PRT are that they approve implementation plans for all states and confirm compliance when the quota is implemented, and also to approve Maine's de minimis request with the recommended provision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Marin. Are there any questions for Marin? Bill Adler.
Is it appropriate to make a motion to have Maine be de minimis?
I was going to just asking for questions on her report. If there aren't any, then I would expect, yes, a motion on the de minimis and then a second motion on the implementation plans. Peter, did you have a question or comment?
I just had a follow-up to comment on the New Jersey smooth dogfish fishery. We rushed to get the first dorsal off, and then the new 12 to 88% the ratio in place by July 1st, and we were successful. We were not allowed to put in a quota that was a percentage of an unknown number. But what I didn't send you in the implementation plan is that considering that under existing regulations, smooth dogfish and sharks are treated equally, and we have the authority to shut down the fishery once the quota is are projected to be reached. So I sent you the legal notice that we made the changes, but the existing regs do give us that authority. But again, there is no quota yet, so it's a moot point, I guess.
Thank you for that, Rob.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my question was related to the 12% to 88% for the fin to carcass, and where does that stand in the federal system? Last meeting, there was some indication that that still had some time to go through before it would be a final rule. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do have that correct. Carol and Margot couldn't make it to this meeting, but there hasn't been any progress since then. Isn't that correct, Kelly?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's correct. I think we're hoping to get a proposed rule out this fall.
Anyone else on the on Marin's report? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion on main de minimis. Bill Adler.
I'll make a motion to have Maine declared de minimis.
Is there a second to that? Seconded by Bill McElroy. Is there anybody wishing to speak to this motion? Terry Stockwell.
Thank you.
Else wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, Terry, go ahead.
That was my sole comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion for main de minimis? Seeing none, that motion stands approved. On the matter of the implementation plans, Mr. Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the implementation plans as presented be approved by the board.
Thank you. We have a motion from Pat Augustine to approve the implementation plans as submitted. Is there a second to that? Somebody's supposed to say second. Seconded by Mr. Adler. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak to the motion to approve the implementation plans as submitted? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion to approve the implementation plans? Seeing none, those stand approved. Thank you for that. We're right on track. Okay, draft addendum 3, we're in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is draft addendum 3 to the Coastal Sharks FMP. Just as a reminder, this is the draft for public comment. So after today, if it's approved, it will go out for public comment. The Highly Migratory Species Amendment 5A addressed recent stock assessment findings for scalloped hammerhead, blacknose, and sandbar sharks. They established new species groupings for hammerhead and blacknose sharks, and a new commercial quota and recreational size limit for all hammerhead sharks. And the effective date for those are July 3rd and August 2nd, 2013. So a key goal of the Coastal Sharks FMP is to maintain consistency between NOAA fisheries and our plan. And so the new species groups, quotas, and the recreational size limit result in some inconsistencies. So back in May 2013, the board initiated this document. So in terms of the large coastal sharks and the small coastal shark groups, state waters follow federal waters. So whenever 80% of the quota is expected to be reached, NOAA Fisheries closes that fishery. And so NOAA Fisheries removed hammerheads and blacknose sharks from the large coastal shark group and the small coastal shark group and established new species groupings. So our plan does not have those same groupings, so if the species grouping is closed in federal waters, then it would result in inconsistency. In addition, the current recreational size limit for hammerheads is 54 inches, and a stock assessment found that the female scalloped hammerhead shark reaches maturity at 78 inches, so NOAA Fishery increased that maximum size limit for hammerheads to limit retention of mature individuals. So issue 1 is establishing new species groups and quotas. Option A is status quo. ASMFC will not change the species groupings in the ISFMP. And option B is measures consistent with Amendment 5A. And just to demonstrate those new species groupings, hammerhead was removed from the large coastal sharks group and placed in their own group, and these two species groups would be linked, so when one quota closes, the other also closes, when fishery closes, excuse me. And the same with blacknose and the non-blacknose small coastal shark group. So fine-tooth, bonnet-head, and Atlantic sharpnose will remain in the small coastal shark groups, and the Atlantic blacknose will be put in their own species group. And the second issue is recreational size limits. Option A is status quo. The Commission will not change recreational size limit for hammerhead sharks. And option B is measures consistent with the highly migratory species, Amendment 5A. And as I mentioned, that is a 78-inch recreational size limit for all hammerhead shark species. And just as a reminder to the board, due to budget constraints, if this addendum is approved for public comment, the states will be responsible for holding public hearings, and staff will provide them with all the necessary information and materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Marin. Are there any questions for Marin on the draft addendum, which we're considering for public comment? Seeing none, are there any requests to modify the amendment in the addendum in any way before it goes out to comment? Seeing none, Rob O'Reilly.
Yeah, I missed the first opportunity there, but I really wanted to just ask again, where does this stand in the federal process? Is this going parallel so that the alternatives will match up at the end? And since you mentioned the public hearing process would be on the state, is the council or NIMPS holding any public hearings on this that you're aware of, or has that happened, or how does that work?
I'll let Marin and the service rep respond.
They've already implemented the changes in species groupings and recreational size limit.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up? No, okay. Is there a motion? Pat Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before a motion, you have a timeline for when we're going to have public hearings and all. You haven't established it yet, and will we have a show of hands before the meeting as to which states might want to have those?
Yeah, we could do
Thank
that.
you. Then I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
I move that the board approve draft addendum 3 for public review.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. Is there a second? Second by Bill McElroy. Anyone who wishes to speak to the motion? Mr. Adler, anyone else ready to speak to the motion? Seeing no one else, you have the floor.
Is this more or less just a rubber stamp of what the feds have already done? So you take this out to public hearing, you have options, but you really don't have options because you got to go with what the federal plan is? Is that how this is shaping up?
Go ahead, Mariah.
Yes, the Coastal Sharks FMP is complementary to the NOAA Fisheries federal FMP, so that's basically what we're doing.
So we're basically saying this is a done deal because we got to go with them.
Well, I don't know if I would put it in exactly those words. We're trying to be complementary to a evolving federal plan, and I think that has been this board's intent for some time. Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, I think we did have an opportunity to comment and with the HMS folks here, and I think the documents were modified based on some of our comments, and so we did have some input in that, and I think it was successful input into that, and so this is just the final step of complementing those actions that we did have input on.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call that question. All those in favor of sending Addendum 3 out for public comment, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. Raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before this board? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. That might be a record.
It's that new training, Mr. Chairman.